Hi, y'all. Meteorologist Andy Hill here at the forecasting desk this Thursday, May 4th. Right now, across much of North America, an Omega block weather pattern is in place. I'm going to talk about each side of it in terms of nice or nasty weather and how it will break down in the next week. That's going to include a ton of shifting temperatures in the west and east and repeat rounds of possible severe weather in the central US. You may have heard of this by now, but if you haven't, or you need a refresher, the Omega block is simply this. A stubborn, tough to move sequence of low and high pressures are lined up together such that the shape we can draw between them is the capital letter Omega. The center of this weather pattern is warming up a lot of people and will continue to do so as we have heat warnings even for parts of Alberta, Canada. This exiting low pressure on the east side has done some wild, anomalous things so far. It's dropped over 2 feet of snow in parts of the upper peninsula of Michigan here in the red, something that has never happened east of the Rocky Mountains before in history in the month of May. It's also dropped a foot of snow in portions of the central Appalachians here in eastern West Virginia, and it will continue to bring cooler and cloudier conditions to the northeast and southeastern Canada for the next couple of days before we really start to warm up over here. So the time of this low pressure over here is limited, and I think as it exits there, you can see that blue leaving. We're really going to see some beautiful weather start to pop up in the eastern Midwest and the northeast states, even down into the southeastern part of the country and the mid-Atlantic states too. And that's going to be through the middle of the month for y'all. And while it's going to be beautiful over there, the moment it starts getting humid and we get a frontal system pushing through, that's when we're going to start seeing severe weather. In the near-term forecast, that remains elusive, thankfully. So for the next 10 days, we should be okay besides some showery activity here and there. Now, the western low-pressure system over California right there, you can see that's bringing June gloom over here a little bit early. It might take as long as May 10th or even later to really scour out that cold air you can see in the greens and blues there in the west coast. So for a while, we're really going to experience June gloom over here as we move through the early month and into the middle of the month. Eventually, it looks like a warm-up might come back, but we're pretty far out from that right now. So with that cold air coming in the low pressure system, we're also going to see multiple rounds of rain and unsettled weather at the same time over the next week or so. We even had some thunderstorms yesterday on Wednesday in Southern California, and I think that might be the case again coming up with another low pressure system moving through or any part of it swinging through that might generate some electrical activity in those showers. So to generalize, it's going to remain active over here on the west coast for the next week or two, with widespread rainfall expected to accumulate over half an inch in these areas in red as we go into next week. Unfortunately, there are consequences downstream of this low pressure staying in place for the next week. I'm talking about severe weather and quite likely a lot of it in the plains. Let's dive into the details starting today. Thursday, May 4th, severe weather risk is one that's going to be similar to several setups coming through as we go through the next week, though it will have a slightly different origin than the rest of them. It involves a slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center, or a 2 out of 5 here in the yellow, primarily for damaging wind and hail as we go through the day. But later on in the night, there is the chance for a tornado or two, particularly in this area of northwestern Oklahoma, maybe even into far southern Kansas, a little bit south of Wichita. Today's setup is a classic in spring, a dry line that will concentrate instability right along the barrier here. Wind shear, or changing wind speed and direction with height, that will promote organized storms like supercells, and lift from a shortwave that's being introduced from a region that's rather abnormal. That shortwave is sneaky. Watch this area near the Baja California Peninsula as it goes up to the northeast into the South Plains. Once it gets to Texas, here in the pink you can see fast enough winds to provide that organized convection. Further north in Oklahoma, this is Thursday evening at about 7 p.m. Central, you can see just barely enough wind expected in the purple and pink here that could spin up a few supercells. Our nadir juice, or winds about a mile above the surface, kick in much later into the evening and nighttime hours on Friday. And this model, the RAP, has them concentrated in that area of northwest Oklahoma, which is why the Storm Prediction Center has a 5% tornado risk in this area. So that includes areas just around Oklahoma City and to the west, Enid, Oklahoma, and Woodward. So while this video is being edited today, the Storm Prediction Center actually changed the day one outlook pretty dramatically to focus the tornado probability near Wichita Falls, Texas, and Frederick, Oklahoma, as that's where it looks like our nadir juice is really going to be concentrated. May the 4th be with y'all here. If there is an upgrade to the severe weather risk, then I will do a nowcasting live stream for it. The next day, the Mid-South does get in on some thunderstorm activity, and quite a bit of it you can see there in Tennessee. Several rounds of training thunderstorms are possible over the state, which could lead to a risk for flash flooding. In addition, in the evening hours, you can see down here in central Texas, once again, another chance at some storms that could develop in the evening hours, persist into the nighttime hours as they travel down along Interstate 35, posing a wind and hail threat along with quite a bit of lightning. So here's that slight risk from the Weather Prediction Center of excessive flooding here in the yellow. This is for Friday. Basically, the entire state here is going to see a bunch of rainfall. So if you live anywhere in Tennessee or maybe along the Kentucky border near Bowling Green, you're going to see quite a bit of rain on Friday. But nothing here is going to be over the top severe weather. So this is going to be confined to a marginal risk, and mostly your concerns would be with flash flooding and driving through flooded waters. So after Friday, the severe risks that are coming up are still going to be from short waves or tiny divots like this one right here along this map. You can see this is a map of vorticity, which measures the rate that things want to spin, but it also has these lines of pressure right here. And wherever they create a little divot like this one, that's a small scale feature that we can call a shortwave trough. So watch that feature actually become established there in North Dakota. That's going to be the case coming up here with several shortwaves, but they're all going to come off of our main trough, that main western part of the Omega block that we've been looking at off the coast of California. So no more sneaky shortwave troughs down from Baja California. So here's a look at the simulated satellite, or where storms are going to be, what we could see develop over the next week or so. So we see some slight returns showing up Thursday into Friday here as storms pass over Tennessee. And then on Friday night, we actually see that one system that's expected to have a slight risk of severe weather there in central Texas. That shows up nicely here with some bright cloud tops right here into eastern Texas. As we get into Saturday, multiple areas of storms and possibly rain into the Midwest seem to be likely, especially into the morning on Sunday. And then this sets us up for a severe weather day on Sunday that could be much more widespread. So this is Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central. We have several storm systems that do look pretty menacing. Another one back here in central Texas, possibly a remnant of a storm over here in the deep south, and even several electrical storms possible into the upper Midwest. Iowa, Wisconsin, even parts of Minnesota could see some thunderstorms here. So into Monday, you can see storms popping up in Arkansas, another wave of stormy weather there. And as we go into Tuesday, even another storm showing up in the central Great Plains near Oklahoma and Kansas. Now this far out, this is one solution, and again, these short waves are really going to be difficult to nail down exactly where they're going to promote severe weather. The point of showing you the simulated satellite over the next week or so is to tell you that, hey, it's an active stormy season coming up. Despite all of that, the Storm Prediction Center has no active areas of severe weather outlined yet as we go into the weekend and the beginning of next week. And that's due to low confidence. I've been talking a lot about short waves, and short waves lead to lower confidence for these sort of severe weather setups. So what the heck is a short wave then? Well, in meteorology, the smaller something is, the more difficult it is to forecast it further out in time than something that's much larger. So we have a much larger trough out here, this big blue blob on the west coast that's being extended into next week. But if we look closely, we can see that one shortwave that I picked out there showing right over North Dakota Sunday night. And we even have some divots down here into Texas, and that's going to be part of our severe weather setup. So something smaller being harder to forecast further out tells me that these short waves, or small waves, will likely only bear confident severe weather risks from expert meteorologists within a 2 to 3 day period before arrival. We'll have to keep a close eye on any particular day if the risk becomes elevated as we get closer as a result. With these short waves, models are constantly showing several rounds of severe weather possible. All of those days are also conditional on top of being hard to predict. That means a change in temperature that's only a couple of degrees, or Whether or not there was a storm earlier in the day and the same place could make or break an entire forecast. Could mean you could see a tornado, or could mean you could see hardly a cloud in the sky. The April 19th dual supercell tornado outbreak that happened around the southern periphery of Oklahoma City and it impacted areas of Cole, Oklahoma and Shawnee, Oklahoma that I covered live, that was a conditional setup day. So days like the next couple of weeks in the Central Plains always warrant mindfulness. Don't be scared. Be prepared. I wish it were easier to plan this far out, but it's severe weather season. If any particular day's risk has a strong conditional aspect to it, and it looks like it's going to form those storms right then and there, then I can quickly plan a nowcasting live stream to cover it. Even the United Kingdom is getting in on some thunderstorm activity over the next couple of days. You can see all of these storms popping up over southern England into Wales, and even some storms are expected in parts of Ireland. So this is particularly going to be for Thursday and Friday. And looking at our temperatures about 4 miles above the surface, we can see the reason why this happens. As we go into Friday in particular, this is Friday midday over here in the United Kingdom, we have very cold temperatures in the blues here across much of the area. These really cold temperatures up there really give way to instability. The air is cooling much more quickly than any rising air going into it is expected to cool. And that means that air that's rising is going to keep rising because it's not cooling off fast enough. So we're probably going to see quite a few thunderstorms possible, especially tomorrow in parts of the southern UK. So yesterday, the Climate Prediction Center's temperature guidance for about a week out from now showed this. This is based on ensemble model data, or a bunch of runs of a single model that are slightly different put together to form a consensus. Those are typically the most skillful forecast data that we have access to. So the ensemble data showed this. Big time warmth from the central Great Plains all the way into the northeast. So mid-May isn't looking so bad for the eastern 2/3 of the country, and even into southern Ontario and Quebec over here. But don't take this graphic literally. It's not going to be 90 degrees Fahrenheit everywhere here in the deep red. Actually, if we look at these ensemble runs of temperature anomalies, or the departure from normal, we can see it's not really that drastic for that 6 to 10 day period. So that's about mid to late next week. It's just slightly warmer than average here in those light orange colors showing up. Here's a look at the European ensemble run for the same day. You can see maybe a little bit stronger of a signal there in the Great Plains, but again, on average, it's not really that much above average in terms of temperatures. And sure enough, this is the most recent Climate Prediction Center temperature outlook, much for the same days. We can see those deep reds and oranges mostly muted here and just expected to be a little bit above average. So that's reflected pretty spot on. So what do those temperature anomalies translate into? Well, for early to mid-May, that really means mid 60s to 70s degree Fahrenheit for the northeast, 70s to 80s in the northern plains, and 80s to 90s in the south. So these are about the daytime temperatures you can expect as we go into next week. It may get pretty warm in some of these areas if a storm does come through that's further out in the model guidance, and that compacts some warm air, especially here into the Ohio River Valley. And because the next 10 days or so are situated around our Omega block, breaking down and leaving the area, just a bunch of shortwave troughs coming in and causing severe weather, we don't really see a bunch of windy conditions. So we're looking at a map here of our expected wind speeds, the surface wind speeds as we go through the next week or so. And besides some areas along the southern and northern high plains from time to time in the next week, it doesn't really look like it's going to be all that blustery until we get a big storm that moves through maybe sometime into mid-May. So unless you have a storm coming through and impacting your area, bringing some gusty winds and heavy rain, I don't think we're going to see much of anything like that blowing dust advisory that led to a huge pileup in Illinois, outside of the Mountain Time Zone. Now, in the Mountain Time Zone and the Intermountain West, those gusty winds from time to time are going to continue to bring some fire weather, especially down here in these areas that know it well. But other than some response up here to the really warm temperatures in the Canadian prairies, I don't think we're going to see too much of those blowing winds for a little while. So we've got a little time to go while this Omega block that's been over the US breaks apart, and then we'll see what the middle of May has in store for us in terms of severe weather. Now again, I'll be storm chasing and gone from my post here from May 13th to the 27th. I might have some field updates. I'll definitely have some field footage. So unfortunately, I'll be doing my best to help from abroad, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do everything that I'm able to do here at the forecasting desk. So thanks for the support, y'all. This thing's pretty cool. So hopefully this video is helpful, really driving home the point that these severe weather risks are not going to come into focus until we're only a couple to a few days out from any particular event. So again, I want to reiterate that weather mindfulness is of utmost importance here as we go into the month of May for anyone who's in an area prone to severe weather. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.